Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of What a Fuster Cluck. I'm your host, Lolita Keys, and on today's episode, I am struggling to decide what am I really going to talk about because, quite frankly, there is so much still going on around this war with Iran that I just cannot seem to get away from this subject. As much as I want to go back to talking about parenting and health and wellness and skincare and whatever else is on my mind these days, this is my new novella, and I am not trying to make light of it or make a joke about it at all, but I really just cannot help myself with the way that this is evolving. As many of you know, Tuesday at 8 o'clock, President Trump had issued a Truth Social post, essentially threatening to blast Iranians back into the Stone Ages. Just a completely barbaric truth, not to mention the one he put out on Easter morning where he literally was dropping F-bombs, sounding like a complete crazed, unhinged lunatic. And I mean, I don't even know what else to say about that. If you haven't heard them or read them, I highly recommend that you do, because like many of you, I found myself asking, is this even legit? And the fact that it was even more insane. And it's so funny knowing that he wrote that book, The Art of the Deal, that it seems to me that he's the one who is constantly caving, so much so that there is a expression floating around where after he came out on Tuesday and said that he was extending this to another 2 weeks because they had finally provided some terms upon which we could negotiate. And I'll read what those terms are. But the funny thing about those terms is that they're kind of the same ones that the Iranians have been asking for weeks now, that were previously non-negotiables. And Trump had previously been truthing out that there needed to be complete and total surrender. And now we're negotiating, which is what we should have been doing from the very beginning. But what do I know? I'm just a suburban mom who doesn't have a degree in politics, but whatever. Again, it's really just kind of the fear factor and the unhinged, deranged entertainment of this entire thing that could ultimately end up being so catastrophic. I can't even begin to imagine what the world would look like if shit really does hit the fan, even though it already is. Talk about a Fuster Cluck. I mean, I'm not even going to ask the question, how much worse could things get? Because I think we all know that they could, but it's comical to me. You know, sometimes when things are crazy or bad, all I can really do is laugh about it, and not in a way that's making light of it or brushing it off, but just because I'm like, is this real life? I mean, so many people are coming out now and really just focusing on the fact that if you're someone who supported Trump or voted for Trump, it's almost as if you have been completely bamboozled unless you are a total neocon war hawk. I mean, it's kind of crazy to see just the complete shift in all of the talking points from the Trump campaign when he was running versus what is actually happening during his presidency. And I can't help but think I've said this so many times, I don't even know if I'm joking about it anymore, but I swear he's been abducted by aliens or something. Like, where's the Trump that was running on no wars? Where has he gone? I don't know. That it's so wild to me how absolutely just unhinged he is. And I know he's always had his rants, but this is like, I have to just attribute this to his age and the fact that he's not going to get another presidency. So now he's just going, all out, saying whatever. He really didn't have a filter before, but he absolutely doesn't have one now. And I've said in some of my other episodes, we've talked about the political divide that's happening on the right at the moment, where people who previously were strong Trump supporters campaigned for him, gave the keynote speech at his convention. Many of these people have now become public enemy number one. So I want to read you a truth that he put out recently that is just wild, and just comment on this truth, because again, it's like, why am I still surprised? He's dropping F-bombs on Easter morning. So why are these truths still so shocking to me? And I'll have to read you the tweet that Candace Owens put out after this, which was also pretty hysterical. But let me read this and go through this a little bit just for the sheer entertainment value of it all. He says, I know why Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones have all been fighting me for years, especially by the fact that they think it is wonderful for Iran, the number one state sponsor of terror, to have a nuclear weapon because they have one thing in common: low IQs. They're stupid people. They know it. Their families know it, and everyone else knows it too. I mean, I'm going to stop right there because just those lines alone have me cracking up. I mean, it's such a juvenile dig. You have low IQs, you're stupid, and everybody knows it, including your family. I mean, it's I can't take it seriously. Especially knowing that these were his advocates, people who he has consulted with, people who have been to the White House, again, people who supported him during his campaign. And now all of a sudden they're low IQ, stupid people. Now, I guess the expression keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer might apply here. And it's quite possible he never trusted them. But we all know, I think, after these many years of Trump being in the public spotlight, we all know that this is just his shtick, right? You go against him, you go against anything he's saying, and you become public enemy number one. He goes on to say, look at their past, look at their record. They don't have what it takes, and they never did. Okay, sure. Tucker Carlson had one of the number one shows on Fox News, as did Megyn Kelly. They've both gone on to be wildly successful podcasters with audience that blow legacy media out of the water. So this is a joke, and the only people who believe this are boomers and aren't, fully engulfed yet in the podcast sphere or the YouTube sphere or the alternate media sphere. And the people that are just completely still ingratiated in legacy media, those are the ones who are going to believe that Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson are losers because they're not on TV and they lost their shows. Those were some of the biggest mistakes that network TV has made, simply because of the precipitous drop in viewership since they left those networks. Let's see, what else does he say? Okay, nobody cares about them. They're nut jobs, troublemakers, and will say anything necessary for some free and cheap publicity, says the guy who's constantly tweeting and truthing literal cheap shots. I mean, he's built his career off of saying some of the most, hysterical, blatantly just degrading kind of one-liners, and he's calling Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly troublemakers. Just ask people in 2014 and 2015 if they would have put that same label on Trump when he was coming in and disrupting the status quo of politics. I mean, the hypocrisy is just too funny. And will say anything necessary for some free and cheap publicity. Again, pot, kettle. Now they think they can get some clicks, which he put in quotation, because they have third-rate podcasts, but nobody's talking about them, and their views are opposite of MAGA. Obviously, but the funny thing is they're only opposite of MAGA today. They're definitely not opposite of the America First agenda that MAGA was promoting in this last election cycle. And the brainwashing, the ability for him to brainwash is truly impressive. Or I wouldn't have won the presidential election in a landslide. Well, that's why you won in a landslide, because everything you're doing right now is kind of completely contradictory to everything that you were running on. So, who's the outcast in this situation? Who's the one who's not getting the memo? It's the one listening to Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro, which just happens to be President Trump. MAGA agrees with me and just gave CNN a 100% approval rating of Trump, not hand-flailing fools like Tucker Carlson, who couldn't even finish college. Okay. The guy is a multimillionaire. He comes from a wealthy family to begin with. He is hardly not a success story. So it's hysterical that he's trying to paint him in this picture like he's a failure because he didn't finish college. You know what? Kudos to him. That was probably the most brilliant thing he ever did, was to not finish college, much like many successful billionaires, especially those in the tech space who either dropped out of college, didn't go at all, like a lot of entrepreneurs. So this is just, again, these insults only matter if you are of the mind that college was the only way to go to be successful in this country. This is just too funny. Let's see. What else does he say? He's talking about Tucker Carlson still. He was a broken man when he got fired from Fox, and he's never been the same. Perhaps he should see a good psychiatrist. Or Megyn Kelly, who nastily asked me the now famous only Rosie O'Donnell question. Or crazy Candace Owens, who accuses the highly respected First Lady of France of being a man when she is not. How do you know, President Trump? That would be my question. How do you know? Because Candace Owens has put forth some pretty damning claims against Macron's wife. And it's like, and, do you really know? How do you know? Have you actually seen behind the curtain? That's the question I would be asking. And will hopefully win lots of money in the ongoing lawsuit, meaning the president of Macron, because they're suing Candace Owens for, what they're, I believe, claiming to be slander when she's talking about how Macron's wife is actually a man and seemingly, allegedly, a pedophile for starting to date him when I think he was like a 14-year-old or in high school or something along those lines. Crazy, I know. See, novella. Or bankrupt Alex Jones, who says some of the dumbest things and lost his entire fortune, as he should have, for his horrendous attack on the families of the Sandy Hook shooting victims, ridiculously claiming it was a hoax. That was disgusting. Not going to lie about that. But we all know Alex Jones has gone on, and even before the Sandy Hook issues that he ran into by claiming that that was a hoax. Even before then, he was still saying things that turned out to be true. I mean, he was one of the people who knew Epstein was happening before the mainstream knew that Epstein was happening. These so-called pundits are losers, and they always will be. Now, fake news CNN, the failing New York Times, and all of the other radical left news organizations are hailing them and giving them positive press for the first time in their lives. They're not MAGA, they're losers, just trying to latch on to MAGA. As president, I could get them on my side anytime I want to, but when they call, I don't return their calls because I'm too busy on world and country affairs and threatening to blow up entire civilizations of people. And after a few times, they go nasty, just like Marjorie Trader Brown. But I no longer care about that stuff. I only care about doing what is right for our country. MAGA is about winning and strength and not allowing Iran to have nuclear weapons. MAGA is about making America great again. And those people have no idea how to do that. But I do, because the United States is now the hottest country anywhere in the world. President Donald J. Trump. Okay. Oh my God. I mean, I I have so many things. I really don't know where to start. I'm trying to wrap my head around all of this. First, I'm sitting here just thinking, oh my God, I cannot believe that he is taking the time to write this incredibly long Truth Social post. But it's interesting because the very thing that you pay attention to, energy goes where attention flows. So, in his attempt to continue to bash these voices, these descending voices on the right, the more attention he's going to give them, the more eyeballs he's going to drive towards their podcasts, especially for the millions of people out there who hate Trump or have Trump derangement syndrome and are looking for somebody to go to sort of further support their argument. And so if you're on the left right now, you're like cheerleading for this. This is amazing. You want to see this kind of divide. You want to see the base fractured because it's a guaranteed win in the midterms for the Democrats. So why wouldn't you? Of course, it's like wonderful. They're like, let's keep it going. Let's keep these unhinged, wild Truth Social posts going because it just feeds the engine that's ultimately going to crush in the midterms. I mean, like talk about a blue wave, unless something crazy happens between now and the midterms. And all of this turns out to be truly the best thing that could have ever happened in American history. I don't know. I have no confidence in that, if I'm being completely honest. I know that we can all say nobody knows what goes on behind closed doors, certainly not you or I. Nobody listening to this podcast has that level of clearance. But this all just looks really bad. And if you're following along with this war in Iran, the crazy thing about what transpired on Tuesday is that 1 minute Trump is saying it has to be complete and total surrender. And now he's like, oh, they gave us something we can negotiate on, which is actually several of the things that they've been wanting from the very beginning. So what are the 10 key points that they're asking for? reopen the Strait of Hormuz under Iranian control with coordinated security arrangements. Number two, establish a secure maritime transit protocol through the strait, end all military action against Iran and its allied groups, full withdrawal of U.S. military forces from the region, payment of war reparations and compensation to Iran, lifting all primary U.S. sanctions on Iran, lifting all secondary sanctions on other countries doing business with Iran, termination of UN Security Council sanctions resolutions on Iran. Number 9, termination of IAEA nuclear-related restriction resolutions. I wonder why. And number 10, release of all frozen Iranian assets held abroad. This is insanity. The fact that he's saying this is something we can negotiate on is hysterical because many of these things will 100% put Iran in an even stronger position with more power than they would have ever had we never entered into this war with Israel. It's absolutely insane to me that we are literally right back where we started before this thing even kind of kicked off, really. And again, I'm not a political pundit. I'm just a suburban mom with a full-time job podcasting as a hobby because I just feel so fired up about what is going on in the world today. And the more like the average Joe, the everyday person like you, like me, has these conversations, I just hope and pray that more people wake up to what is going on and that we realize if we haven't learned, myself included, I am officially in this camp now where if we have not learned that it doesn't matter if you're red or if you're blue, if you're Republican or if you're Democrat, it is the same shit in a different administration. And there needs to be like a cataclysmic shift in the way we do politics in this country because we have gotten so far away from where we all want to be, where most Americans want to be. And I cannot imagine, like, we just need to rally around the people. And the crazy thing is, at one time, Trump was an outsider. But what's interesting about Trump is he was always a member of the wealthy class. He was always a member of the richer, class of people in the U.S. He just was a lot more brazen and a lot more strategic than most people or than people want to give him credit for. But it's a true eye-opening experience, what we're living through right now. And we really need to come together and get over this whole, what political side are you on? What ideology are you on? And we need to like seriously, somehow, some way, starting from the ground up, start to get the right people in the right places to drive the change that we really want to see. One thing I want to point out for anybody who's confused about how the Strait of Hormuz has become such a tactical point in this war is what Iran has been able to show and realize in their dominance over the Strait of Hormuz. I think people need to understand that a large majority of oil and fertilizer come through the Strait of Hormuz. And I wanted to actually quote some percentages just to give you an idea. And if you're wondering who controlled the strait before we started this war, there was really no single country that did. Obviously, Iran had the most practical power over it, but in this 10-point plan that they've laid out for negotiations, I mean, they would have complete control over it, which would be a legitimate financial endeavor for them, like a big positive for them from a financial point of view. So, let's see. So what percentage of the world's oil and fertilizer come through the strait? So about 20% of the world's total oil consumption passes through the strait. That's roughly 1/5 of all global use and closer to 25 to 30% of globally traded seaborne oil. This is why it's considered one of the most important oil checkpoints on the planet. Fertilizer. So this one is going to be like a little bit more nuanced. I think people are just literally like myself imagining bags of fertilizer that you get at Home Depot, but it's really not that. It's the ammonia and the urea that are needed for fertilizer. So 20 to 30% of globally traded nitrogen fertilizer moves through the Strait of Hormuz. This is major because now you're talking about famine. If people aren't getting the fertilizer that they need to grow the crops, this is where the argument and the concern around famine starts to come in. So it's not even just oil, which everybody just thinks of as gas. I don't think most people realize the petroleum industry, the oil. I don't think a lot of people realize what goes into that. I mean, it's in it, you need it for plastics. So many things that we have in our everyday lives are due to the stuff that we're extracting out of the earth. And again, 20% of it goes through this strait. It's crazy. And what countries does this impact most? Many are actually our allies. So by investing in this bullshit war with Israel, we are seriously impacting our very allied relationships that we have around the globe and some that we don't. So who's some of the biggest people impacted? Well, number one, China. They're the biggest buyer of Gulf oil. Roughly 40 to 50% of their oil comes through Hormuz. India, they get a large share of their crude oil from the Gulf. Japan, South Korea, European Union countries, and then countries most impacted, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, United Arab Emirates. I mean, we are less dependent on this, but it doesn't matter, you guys. It's a global market. It's a global economy. I hope and pray that by the time I release this episode on Monday, that things shift dramatically in our favor. And I also hope that since I'm taking the time to record this, this doesn't become stale information. But I just couldn't get over that Truth Social post, and I just had to read it and comment on it because this is real life, you guys. This is happening today, right now. And I've always enjoyed a good Trump tweet or Trump truth, as they are now. But I want us to think about the acronym that's been floating around after Trump made the decision on Tuesday to back down, which I think was bullshit. I think basically we're just starting back where we were, and Trump doesn't want to look weak. So now he has to pretend like this whole negotiation thing is happening. The one positive is that they did close the strait, but then, of course, Israel decided to bomb Lebanon, which was part of what Iran wanted us to stop doing, a literal complete ceasefire. But Israel's out here like the kid that just doesn't listen to his mother and is just still like going rogue. And it's impacting us negatively over and over again. And when will we cut off the financial support that we give to this country and put them back in check? The intel that they must have on us must be so unbelievable that we are seemingly at their beck and call. It's unbelievable. I really think they have the secret. I really think they must know when literally Jesus is coming back. I just can't imagine what they have on us that is so awful that we are letting them control us in this way, much to our own demise. And so the expression that you'll hear is a lot of people said, oh, it ended up being Taco Tuesday for Trump. He didn't obliterate the Iranian people, which thank God he didn't, right? I was truly terrified for what could actually happen if he followed through with that threat. And that was a completely ridiculous and ugly threat to even make. I can't even believe he would have uttered those words. But it was called Taco Tuesday, which stands for Trump always chickens out. This expression concerns me for several reasons. Number one, because Trump seems like the type of guy who, if he hears this too much, he's going to do some crazy stuff just to prove that he's not a chicken, and he will go down as the worst president of all time. So I will leave you with that. Taco Tuesday gives you a whole new meaning to the expression. And let's just continue to hope and pray that this war ends, even if it means we have lost, which if you ask most Americans that aren't like MAGA brainwashed, they will agree we gained nothing here. If we obliterated their nuclear capabilities in the summer, and now apparently we've targeted their ballistic missiles. Okay, great. We're done. And we are going to end up walking away from this worse off than when we started if we don't get our stuff together and get back to a true America First agenda. So that'll do it for today. Thank you for tuning into another episode of What a Fuster Cluck. I'm your host, Lolita Keys. You can listen to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Please remember to like, subscribe, follow, share with a family member or a friend, give them a good laugh, or I don't know, make them disagree with everything I say and reach out to me and send me messages, positive or negative. I've seen some funny ones lately. Somebody called me a dumbass recently, which has been the highlight of my comment section. I always love a good insult. But yeah, Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, like, follow, subscribe, share. Again, feel free to fact check me, y'all. I'm really joking about the dumbass comment. I mean, yeah, it was a comment, but obviously I'm not going to take stuff like that seriously. If you want to change my mind, please give me a good argument and I will totally be open to it. You can always feel free to fact check me. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, bye everybody.